So last night I was sitting in my living room, reading, the lights are low, and I set my book down and was just, thinking, and I just felt small. Not humble small, more like, a little insignificant. I mean, I'm one person in one house in one city, and you can walk through a city and feel it, thousands of lives moving at once, and I'm just one of them. And this is not a "oh, poor me, I'm so small" kind of thing. This is just a realization of how big everything is in comparison. So my mind does this thing, it'll start extrapolating. I'm just one man in a city, and this is just one city in our country. And that's just one country on the earth. Earth certainly doesn't notice me. I can be having the biggest emotional day of my life, tragic or fantastic. But the ocean will still move, the wind will still blow, the sun still rises. And then it can start to feel a little desperate, I guess, because the feeling isn't just I'm small, it's, well, maybe I don't really matter at all. And again, it's not really a pity party, but, you know, I know I'm supposed to be grateful. I'm supposed to be stable. I'm supposed to be past this kind of insecurity. So I do what a lot of us do. I look up at the night sky. And it's kind of funny because looking at the stars is always comforting at first. Just the beauty of the tiny sparkles of light. It feels like it gives you a perspective that, my problems aren't that big in the whole big scheme of things. It's kind of like a deep breath. But sometimes I find myself not really looking at the stars. I'm thinking about what I am really seeing there when I look at those stars. And when my mind starts trying to wrap itself around the scale of what I'm looking at, it can be almost terrifying. You run across these occasionally where they talk about, okay, if the earth was just a grain of sand, a little speck you can barely pinch between two fingers. Okay, well, how big would everything else be? Well, the sun would be more like a small beach ball compared to that grain of sand that we're saying the earth is. And on that scale, that little grain of sand that represents the earth would be about 12 meters away, nearly 40 feet. It's like distance across a large room or distance down a driveway. So if you keep that same scale, Earth is a grain of sand. On that scale, Neptune would be about 350 meters from the sun. That means the solar system out to around Neptune would be 700 meters across, 7 football fields end to end. And Earth, it'd still just be a little grain of sand a few meters from a beach ball setting at the center of those 7 football fields. And that's just our neighborhood. So let's zoom out again. Let's say the whole solar system, everything out to where the outer planets, Neptune and that. Let's say the whole solar system is one grain of sand, a single speck. If our whole solar system is a single grain of sand, our home galaxy, the Milky Way, would be about 100 kilometers across. 100 kilometers. An hour of highway driving to get from our grain of sand solar system to the far side of the Milky Way. That's just that's not just the I have trouble picturing that. That's the that's so ridiculously large. I can't picture that. And inside that one galaxy, there are hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy. Many of them have planets, very likely some not that different than Earth. And here's where it really starts to mess with my head. Because now imagine the Milky Way galaxy is just a grain of sand, just one grain of sand. At that, the best guess scientists have for the size of the universe becomes something on the order of 1 kilometer in diameter. I'm not just small. I'm a not even a speck on a speck. Not in any way that seems to matter. Not physically. It's just inconceivable how big God's creation is. But then what scares you is whatever I do, whatever I accomplish, whatever I think about at 2 a.m., my regrets, my loneliness, my, did I waste a chance questions? It's like nothing in all that. And that's where in the Bible, Psalm 8 stops sounding like church language and starts sounding like a man whispering into the dark. And the psalm says, when I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have ordained, what is man that you are mindful of him? Because that's the honest question. How does a God big enough for all that notice this guy or you? And right there, right at the peak of feeling absolutely meaninglessly insignificant, that's when the shift comes. But then there's a scurry of little feet on the floor. Opa, look what I found. And before I can barely pull myself back to the here and now, there's a rock pressed into my hand. Not placed carefully, just given, like it can't wait. And then my grandson leaves in, gives me a kiss on the cheek and a huge loving smile, and off he's gone, off to another adventure, just like that. And I'm sitting there with this rock in my hand and the warmth in my heart, and my whole mind gets yanked back into this room, not gradually, not thoughtfully, instantly. Because 5 seconds ago, I was staring into the cold and terrifying abyss, the math of the universe, of God's creation, thinking, how can I possibly matter in the midst of all that? But now I've got proof in my hand that I do. Not proof that I'm famous, not proof that I'm important out there, just proof that right here in this living room, I matter to somebody. Somebody loves me, and I love somebody. And what gets me is how natural it is for him. He doesn't overthink it. He doesn't wonder if I'm too busy. He just comes barreling in, runs straight to me like my attention is the safest thing in the house, like my face is home. And I can feel it the way it hits me in my heart because I've been calling myself a speck. But he doesn't see a speck. He sees Opa. He sees Grammy. He sees somebody worth running to, somebody worth sharing a treasure with. And that rock, it isn't a rock to him, it's treasure. It's proof of adventure. It's a gift. And he chose me. So the universe can be enormous. It still is. And still in this chair, my life can make a difference. Not because I'm impressive or productive, not because I have it all together, but because love is happening right here. And that's when I remember, what's easy to forget. Significance isn't the same as size. A man can be small on the map, but still be everything to someone he loves. And that's where faith slips in, not as an argument, but as a recognition. Scripture says very clearly that we're made in God's image. And when I'm holding that rock, I don't hear that like a compliment. I hear it like a claim God makes over ordinary people. My worth isn't measured by the scale of the universe, it's measured by the God who made me and the love he allows us to pass through our hands. And this is where the author Richard Rohr, I think back to what he said. He has a book, several books, talking about the universal Christ. And he talks about it, Christ not as Jesus's last name, but as God's presence in all of creation, including me, including my grandson, including my wife, including that tree out behind. And in a moment like that, I can almost see what he means because it's not just me and my grandson, it's creation itself. A child's joy, breath in my lungs, a rock made of atoms that have been around for 13 billion years, starting out in some star somewhere. And they're now gifted to me by a grandchild that loves me. And God is there in the middle of all of that. There's a line in Colossians in the Bible that says, in him All things hold together. All things. Not just galaxies. Also this. Living room chair, a rock in my hand, a kiss on my cheek, little footsteps running away. So yeah, I'm a speck on a speck in an insignificant galaxy in all of creation. But I'm not forgotten. So if tonight feels quiet in the wrong way for you, I'm right there with you. I'm learning slowly that small is not the same as forgotten. Thanks for being here with me. We'll see you on the next one.